الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is a servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. With over 2 billion Muslims around the world at this moment, as well as exponentially that many more who have lived as Muslims in this world, over 14 centuries of a lived tradition, coming from all backgrounds and ways of life, diverse in culture, race, ethnicity, class, creed, and even practice. Embedded within this diverse experience, the reality being as such that there's not so many things that you could look at contemporarily and historically that one could make the claim that every single Muslim agrees to this. And amongst those things, outside of the foundational theologies that are necessary to make one Muslim, a monotheism, tawheed, that there is just one God, and that's what Islam preaches. If someone was to say that I believe in no God or more than one God, you could say, well, that's not the categorical definition of Islam. The finality of prophethood and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, that if someone was to say, I'm Muslim, but I don't believe in Muhammad's prophethood, or that he was the last prophet, that I believe there's a prophet that came after him, this would also be something that is problematic. And a foundational theology rooted in a belief in the afterlife, fundamental tenets of faith. But beyond those things, there's a lot of disagreement. There's a lot of diverse opinions. There's a lot of things that people don't see eye to eye on. But one thing that every Muslim agrees to is that the tragic murder of the grandson of the Prophet of God was an abhorrent act that was wrong. It's imperative for us to understand this, not just in the reality that surrounds us, that is the month of Muharram, one of the sacred months on our Islamic calendar that has its own unique virtues and blessings, different narrations and hadith that give us insight into this. But within these days, especially these first 10 days, there's also this tragic reality that takes place on the plains of Karbala in the land of Iraq. There wasn't something that was beyond anybody's recognition amongst even the companions of God. radiallahu anhum ajma'een. That a man once comes to Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma and he's asking him about the killing of mosquitoes. And Ibn Umar, he says, where are you from? And the man says, I'm from Iraq. And Ibn Umar says, this man is asking me about killing mosquitoes, and his people killed the grandson of the Messenger of God. It wasn't something that they just glossed over. It was something that was important and had to be understood, both from the standpoint of historical narrative, but also to be able to give deep insight on what this deen is actually about. That within every single sense of theological understanding, Sunni, Shi'i, in the midst of both these traditions, intra as well, diverse theological opinions, that your aqidah, your faith, it is not sound if you don't have a love of the family of the Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and if you don't have a love for the grandchildren of the Prophet of God, Hassan and Hussein. We can have a thread that goes within our narrations of the Sunni tradition around this month of Muharram. That our Prophet comes to a Jewish tribe that is fasting on the 10th of Muharram, the day of Ashura. Can we have everyone please come move close? If you can come in as tight as possible. When we line up, there's usually space in the back. But we want to fill up any carpets so that we can make room for people who are coming in. Sisters also, if you could move in as well, so that there's enough room for those who are going to be joining us. That when he comes upon these people and they're fasting on this day, the 10th of Muharram, and he asks that, why are you fasting on this day? And they say that this was the day that Musa and the Bani Israel, they were freed from the tyranny of Pharaoh. This was the day that Fir'aun was drowned. And our Prophet ﷺ, he says that we have more of a right to Moses than you do. And he tells the people that we will fast on this day. And he says to fast a day before or day after to distinguish the practice from other communities. Inshallah, next week on Thursday and Friday we'll be hosting iftar here so that all of us can break fast together and commemorate this practice that is not an obligation, but it is a established practice from the Sunnah. And you want to get into the habits of actually implementing the Sunnahs and the Nawafil, because the purpose of these things is to increase love. And somebody would ask you, well, why would we do these things? Because that's what it is. This is what we're taught. That when you do more than you have to, you're doing it as a mechanism because you want to. And as you continue to do it, it has now the ability to not just increase love that you have for the divine, but to be a mechanism through which you remove the veils that help you to also feel the presence of the divine and the presence of the divine's love. And may Allah make us from amongst those who always feel His presence in a way that gives us courage and strength, and not ever something that makes us afraid to do the things that we are able to do. You have other narrations that speak about the flood of Nuh alayhi salam ending on this day, that the return, the tawbah of Adam alayhi salam being done on this day, and so many other things being done on this day. Practices that connect us to something that are bigger than just the moment that we live in. You and I, as much as we sometimes might believe when we are driving down the street and feel empowered to yell at everybody because they should treat us a certain way. When we walk into the store and the person who's scanning our items at a grocery check-in is taking too long and we just don't want to stand in line. When there's a little bit of something off in the food that we have ordered and we've been accustomed to not only getting everything when we want it, but how we want it, and even our name gets writ on the receptacles in which the beverages are poured into that we are purchasing. Despite the desire to believe in an egocentric worldview that says, I am the center of everything and everything revolves around me, that's not what this deen teaches us. It teaches us that Allah is the center, that we are meant to be God-centric people, and to see how it is that we exist in harmony with one another, not in pursuit of a foolish sense of independence, but to recognize interdependence as the highest level of self-actualization. What you can see embedded within all of these experiences is the reality of individuals that are living for something bigger than this dunya, including bigger than themselves. A people who truly understand وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, that the hereafter, what is going to come next, is better than what is now. People who have principles, ideals, values. They understand their capacity to be both agents of what is good as well as agents of what is not good. You can't let these days of Muharram pass upon you as if you would treat them like any other days. You don't want to buy into polemics that you've never even understood for yourself. To be in a place where somebody else tells you what your history is and that you are not connected to anything, let alone connected to things of what real beauty and real goodness are. If I was to ask you who it is that you take your insight and values from, who it is that you take your teachings from and your philosophy on life, why do you treat the women in your life the way that you do? And what kind of foolish justifications do you make for the abusive, intolerant behaviors that you expose them to? Why do you honor or dishonor your family members, your parents, your elders? Do you visit the sick or do you not visit the sick? Do you see that you are the equal of the person who lives on the street, or do you believe that somehow they are lesser than you are? Do you understand the reality of what it is that means to be an abd of Allah? Or do you live in this world with a mindset that thinks that God is somehow submissive to you, and by virtue of the fact that what you have been given somehow means that you are somehow entitled to it? You have to understand what transpires at the place of Karbala, because it gives to us now recognition of truly how beautiful a human can be, as well as just how ugly a human can be. And then you can decide, what kind of human do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be living in this world? The Prophet ﷺ undoubtedly has a deep love for his family. And where and how we see this emphasized again and again and again. Ali radiallahu anh goes to Medina with the Prophet, and as the Ansar and the Muhajirun are buddying up brother with brother to be able to be a supportive mechanism to each other, Ali radiallahu anh does not have somebody that he is paired with, and he says, Ya Rasulullah, who is my brother? And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Ya Ali, anta akhi fi dunya wal akhirah, that you are my brother in this world and in the next. Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha, bint Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, amongst the 4 best women created in the world. A woman who is said to be more like her father than anyone. From amongst the titles she is given, she is called Abiha, the mother of her father. That when she would walk into a gathering, the Prophet would stand for her. That when she is leaving from this world, she is in such a state of ecstasy that upon the news of the departure of her father, who says this to her, whispering in her ear, she is seen smiling and crying in both that same conversation. And she is asked, what brought tears to your eyes? She said, my father said he is going to be leaving from this world soon, and this made me feel sad. And he said, I would be from amongst the first to join him again in the world beyond this one. And this brought joy to my heart. So much so that when she is leaving from this world, our tradition teaches us that she takes her bed into the courtyard of her home, lays down in it, and smiles into the heavens because she's going to be with her father again. The children that they produce, Hassan wal Hussein, said to be the Sayyids of the Shabab of Jannah. That the Prophet ﷺ, he describes them as being from amongst the things that bring him relaxation, the sweetest fragrance of flowers. That if he would see them coming while he was on the minbar, he would go to greet them and bring them close. That if he was in prayer and they would come upon his back, he would ensure to stay still so as to not disturb his loved ones. He would tell them that he loves them, and he would tell his people to love them, and that whoever loves them, Allah loves them. There's no questions about it. It's all in our hadith. And it's foolishness that separates many of you in this room from learning about your history and your salaf and those who have left deep insight and wisdom for you. There is no Muslim who says the murder of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was anything other than the most abhorrent, tragic of things. These were people who killed the grandson of the Messenger of God. How does that happen? And this isn't centuries later. It's the grandson of the Prophet of God. You got to be able to contextualize. You know why you want to know your history? Because when you don't, people will turn it into something that it's not meant to be. This country does it all the time. When you watch videos of Malcolm and Martin, there's never a lot of interviews that you watch where they're all seated together, but they were seated together. They want you to think that they all lived very separately. They didn't. When you watch most of these clips, they're in black and white. They're in color. They purposely make them in black and white so that you think it happened much longer ago than it actually happened. And you're going to understand if you read the tragedy of Karbala and what transpires to get to it, that organized evil will triumph in a worldly sense over disorganized righteousness. This is truth whether you accept it or not. And you might not want to admit it, but every single day you're getting bamboozled by a system rooted in anti-blackness that wants you to believe that your goodness is only something that is accepted as you aspire towards embracing whiteness. Be yourself. Be proud of who you are. Understand your roots and recognize what it is that you are actually built upon. A narrative of dignity and grace, one that is filled with honor. When Hussein stands at Karbala, he is epitomizing what it means to be a real shaheed, one who bears witness to the truth of Tawheed, that there is nothing in this world that is worth giving up your deen for or compromising on your ethics. 61 years after the Hijrah. That's how much time takes place. A lot of you are going to hear a lot of different things in Muharram that are there. That the calendar, it begins after the Hijrah, attached to it. That's why it's AH. It's a Hijri calendar. That the grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ, they're born in the 3rd and 4th year after Hijrah, respectively. And if you could do the math, you know that they are just babies in this world when he passes from it. And he has such a deep love for them, pronounced again and again and again. How could it be that somebody would think that it would be pleasing to God to do this heinous act? A man by the name of Yazid, who was the son of a man by the name of Muawiyah, takes the authority in now a move that is dynastic for the first time, the Umayyad dynasty. Their lineage traces back to Abu Sufyan. And Yazid, he is said in books, both Sunni and Shi'i, depicted and described as somebody who was just not a good person. An individual who nobody said should have been in that seat. The trajectory that comes forth is now when he is given the throne. There are individuals that exist in Mecca and Medina. They don't want any part of it. His father prior to has made the announcement that my son is going to be the next one in command. And when Yazid is given this authority by his father, the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hussein radiallahu an alayhi salam, he says, I don't see him as my leader. The details of this can go quite deep, and you do injustice to yourself when you don't read it for yourself. And you should, on this day of Jumu'ah, make a deep commitment to understand and know the realities of your history. Recognizing it as much as you want to be somebody who builds a relationship with all of the things that the Prophet said were left behind for our benefit. The Quran, his Sunnah, his family. It's in the Hadith. The people of Kufa, Iraq, they tell the Prophet's grandson to come there, that they will give him protection. He sends forth his own emissary, a man by the name of Muslim ibn Aqil, to go and ensure that these people are going to actually do what they're saying they're going to do. And all kinds of individuals, they are there, 12,000 in number present, and that many more who are removed from the immediate gathering of 30, 40,000 that say that we are with you, meaning that we are with Hussein. And so he sends the message, come immediately. But this is centuries ago. Sending a message is not something that just takes a matter of seconds. It takes time. And in the course of it now, Yazid, he gets understanding of what's transpiring. And he sends forth his own, a man by the name of Ibn Ziyad, who is known to just be ruthless. And all he wants to do out of his allegiance to the Umayyad dynasty is to have upward mobility in his own growth and ranks. It's not different from people do today. You live in a society where our religion is based off of ethics, and many companies and industries, politics, private sectors, all across the board, the advancement in those arenas is based off of your willingness to compromise on ethics, not live by ethics. I'm okay with you voting for me if all it's going to cost is locking up some kids at the border in cages. As long as I get my seat, I'm totally fine with people not having adequate health care. I get to sit in my air-conditioned space and pray to God as best as I want to, not even considering what's happening to masjids that exist in the outer boroughs that are constantly and consistently being trivialized and marginalized by landlords who have no care about how they mistreat them because they come from lower income backgrounds and their skin is black. Ibn Ziyad, he just wants to succeed in the world. Don't be like him. Be like Hussein. Don't think that your success is that you got validation from the system that was seeking to hold you down in the first place. Don't think that your way forward is to gain some type of acceptance from those who only bring you close when you become that which you are not. Ibn Ziyad goes in with a little more than a dozen, 17 people into this place of Kufa. He starts to engage and starts to manipulate, utilizing his own strategy and plan. This is what people do when they want to hold on to power and privilege. They're going to put in the time to make sure that they get what they want, and they're going to give others nothing. And they could care less who dies in order for them to have what they have. They killed the messenger of God's grandson. And as they start now to turn people's attention towards what is there in front of them, they set forth to find this man, Muslim ibn Aqil. And as they start to grasp people's attention and start to take control, and they start to lay much lower, he puts forth the announcement to all those who had made bay'ah to him, 12,000 strong and multiples of that who were not present, that let's go make sure these people don't do anything to us. And of all those numbers that had committed, on that first day, when they were encamped outside of that fortress, there was 4,000 people that came. Already people started to turn their back on the one who the Prophet said, I'm leaving behind for you, my family. Hold fast to these things. They're letting them go. Ibn Ziyad, he starts to now talk to the tribe leaders and starts to think about what he can offer to them in exchange for their tribesmen who stand now in the ranks of those who support Hussein. And the numbers start to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle as people are willing to barter the support of the family of the Prophet in exchange for dunya. Till they say, estimated, there's maybe 70 people who are still left there. What is it that's turning people away? What is it that they are now choosing? You have to think about it for yourself, because it's a process that impacts them. There's still not an army that's compelling them towards anything. There's 17 men who have come into this town, and they're getting this done simply now by manipulating and taking control of individuals, drawing upon their own desire and commitment to this world over the reality of a world beyond this one. It's the same thing that people do to you every day, man. Telling you that your success is leaving behind what you know is going to be good for you in the next world and in this one, so that you can have some bit of a crumb in this world. As they continue and they move forward, and Muslim ibn Aqil, he is eventually found. And the ones who take him captive and they kill him, he says to them that make sure that you send message to Hussein to not come here at this point. And as he has gone now from Medina to Mecca and the city of Mecca, there are many who are saying to him, don't go, this will be bloodshed. Within our tradition, what the narrative says is that he says that I will not be the cause of bloodshed in the haram, that he knows that people will come to get him there. He doesn't want to set the precedent that they're going to come and kill me in front of the Kaaba. How? How could somebody even think to do that? How? But every single day, if you are not thinking about it, this is why we have the existence of prison industrial complexes and military industrial complexes. This is why we have individuals that sit and just in mere moments can decide that they will disrupt the lives of so many people just because they come from a certain race or ethnicity. It makes no difference. And they use you and I consistently as pawns in being able to further those agendas. He still goes. As he gets closer and closer to the place of Iraq and the place of Kufa, eventually is met now with an emissary that tells him what has transpired in the town that is more detailed than what we are saying in the short amount of time that we have here. You have to go and read it and understand it. And they now decide amongst themselves, 100 that had left from the city of Mecca, that were joined by so many more as they made their way. This is the Prophet's grandson. They want to be a part of what he has going on. When the announcements are made, as the people now who are making decisions, they're saying to him that when they see you, they're not going to do anything to you. You're not like other people. You are the grandson of the Prophet of God. Some from amongst them said that those people have killed our family members. We need to go and get what we can to honor that. And so they decide to move forward. And they tell people, we're going to go. If you want to come with us, come with us. If you don't want to come with us, you're free to leave. And again, tons of people just leave them. Where they are stationed, this place of Karbala now becomes the site of what is a truly horrendous, atrocious occurrence. You have day upon day upon day, so much that is taking place. The deprivation of food, the barring of water, the purposeful starvation and thirst, not just of adult men, but of young babies. Culminating in a moment where they murder the grandson of the messenger of God. And if your heart does not hurt, then you have to, I say it with love, really take a look at your heart and think about, what is this faith rooted in? The grotesque, brutal murder that results in a decapitation, where heads are presented now in some narrations to all the way in Asham. How can somebody do this and still think they can call themselves Muslim? How can it not bother each one of us? The example of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a necessary example for each one of us to reflect upon. The grandson of the messenger of God grew up in the laps of Fatima and Ali, had his own older brother Hassan radiallahu anhum ajma'een, grew up in the home of the messenger himself sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When the moment comes now for him to demonstrate who it is that he is and what it is that he is about, standing not alone, but standing with everything that his family has instilled within him, in the face of tyranny, in the face of oppression, in the face of real ugliness. Showing us what it means to really be a Muslim in reality and not just one in name. If you do not know what took place at Karbala, you are doing yourself an injustice. If you don't take the time to understand this beyond reductive, simplistic ways of divisiveness, You are blessed to be a part of a community that is made up of people from all walks of life. There's not a lot of Muslim communities that look like this one. Every single night on the 4th floor of this room, our Shia brothers and sisters are having their majlis program. Go to one if you have never been to one before. Break down your own stereotypes. Get over yourself. Think about where the hesitancies might come from, where the challenges inwardly come from. It's not any different. If you don't think that there are political elements that influence your understanding of religion, you don't have to believe something that somebody else believes. That's not what we're saying. Nobody needs your permission to believe what they believe. But you can have a mutual respect, a sense still of love, a recognition that our God is one, our Prophet is one, our book is one, our Qibla is one. And every Muslim understands that what happens at that plain of Karbala is one of the most tragic things that ever takes place in history. It's for us to take from the example of Hussein radiallahu an alayhi salam, and to allow for ourselves to benefit from those who are meant to be our two teachers, inclusive of the Ahlul Bayt. May Allah's peace be upon all of them. It's a decision that no one can make for you. And inshallah ta'ala, make sure that you're making it with a sense of what's good for you in this world and in the next. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. I would encourage you all to go and learn your history. And when you learn this specific part and read about it, there's a few verses of the Quran that I would recommend that you keep in mind as a prism through which you are understanding this. In Surah Al-Adiyat, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. That indeed man towards his Lord is ungrateful, and that he is a witness to that unto himself. And that indeed his love of wealth, of the world, is severe. And the other set of verses I would say to look at it through is from Surah At-Teen, where Allah Azza wa Jal says to us, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. That we created humanity in the most beautiful of forms, and then we let them fall to the lowest of the low. Because when you read this narrative, you're going to see one who is on the end of the spectrum of exemplifying what it means to live in a beautiful form. On the other, those who give us an indication of what it means to live amongst the lowest of the low. May Allah always make us people of beauty. Amen. But utilize the time. Allow for yourself to understand what your deen is built upon. Not romanticized, not idealized. This is a deen that's rooted in reality. And the reality is that even when pushed to the furthest of limits, there are still people who will never sacrifice on what this Islam is about, no matter what the consequences will be. Knowing that what's in store for them in the world beyond this one is always greater than anything that this world will offer. May Allah make us their followers and make us from amongst them. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Make us true followers of your beloved Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Allow for us to overcome the differences that we have amongst us, so that we can truly understand that this is the deen that is based off of oneness, tawheed, ultimate unity. Let us never be those who chase after this dunya at the expense of our akhirah. Make us those who have a deep love for all those that we come into interaction with, and fill our books with acts that are pleasing to you, so that when we stand in front of you, we can be from amongst those who say we tried our best to fulfill the purpose for which you created us. Help us to always choose what is right over what is wrong, to never side with the oppressor over the ones that they oppressed, but to always be on the sides of those that are held down. Make us those who never engage in acts of injustice towards people of any background. And forgive us when we are silent, when we should be speaking, when we are seated, when we should be standing. Forgive us when we are sleeping, when we should be praying, and making dua for all those who we have the ability to, but we forget them the way that the world has forgotten. Help us, Ya Rabbi, to live the ethics, the values, the ideals that this deen seeks to infuse with us. Make us not just those who pray with our bodies, but pray with our hearts. And through that, make it a transformative experience that lets those hearts be ready to give abode to principles of justice, mercy, love, compassion, and all things that are good, as the means through which we see this world and what our role is within it. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيم الصلاة.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're inspired by the work that we're doing at the IC and want to help keep it going, subscribe to our podcasts, follow us on social media, donate to help support us at ICNYU.org, and most importantly, keep us in your continued du'as. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.